Welcome to another Sharing Your Passion. My guest today is a rather special person. He is an explorer of reality. He's a man who leaves no stone unturned in his exploration of reality. This man beside me, he's an Oxford graduate in maths. He's been a comprehensive school teacher in central London. He was a wannabe rock star, playing bands in Camden Town in London. A real star, I understand, but he's very modest. And he's an actor, a former actor who's acted in musical theatre and dramatic theatre in rep. An amazing guy. Now, like so many of us, I'm sure you'll agree, we've been seeking for something. It's like, life always seems not quite good enough. We need to attain something, a new goal, a new venture. Life's not quite right. I need this, I need that, something more. There's all this element of something missing, what I mean. And James went through this. This big time. He went through this big time. But he came to a realization, and that realization was that there is a new reality. There is a new reality that he could, if you like, embrace, that didn't require him to be, if you like, a seeker anymore, that he could be himself. And this is all about being who you are. James, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. What an introduction.
Sharing your passion. And it's delightful to see you. And I should say, I've been privileged to actually be with James this afternoon in one of his meetings with a wonderful group of people. Fascinating and really enlightening stuff. Thanks again for that, James. Without further ado, tell me, what is reality?
Wow, what a question to begin with. Well,
for you.
For me. Well, talking about all this kind of seeking that you were speaking about there, it's like reality seemed to be, I'm a separate person moving through a world of other separate people with separate things, and I'm trying to navigate my way successfully through that world. I'm trying to be a success. I'm trying to make my life work. And I tried that. I tried it really hard. I followed whatever inklings I had about career, like you mentioned the degree, be an academic, follow your, when I was at school, the encouragement is if you're bright, you follow your academic potential, so I did that. It didn't work for me. Many of us who've studied and followed academic pursuits, somehow along the way you realize that there's an emptiness in that. It's not the kind of thing you're looking for in life. There's no juice in that. That was like for me. And then I always had an interest in music from an early age, from about 13, 14. I remember hearing a friend of mine's brothers were playing an acoustic guitar, and it was like just hearing the sound of the kind of shimmer of that chord, just kind of something lit up for me, and so I wanted to explore that more, and I sort of learned to play guitar, started singing songs and writing songs, and so I kind of followed that as my next avenue of looking for this, whatever it was, reality, as you're calling it, of my life finally coming together, finally working, And lo and behold, that seemed to fall apart as well. It was never quite what I was after. And then just going through then the drama thing and drama school and acting and then school teacher, it was like I was going through this list of possibilities of things that would do it, like the next thing, this is going to do it now. And then always coming to the same realization that no, it doesn't matter how successful I might be at this, it doesn't matter how much effort and just it doesn't matter what I put into it, it's not providing me with what I'm really looking for. So for me, and maybe for a lot of people watching this program, where do you go from there? Well, you kind of come to that point where you realize it's it's not in the stuff of the world, and then this kind of seeking takes a different direction. It sort of becomes more introverted, and you start sort of looking into, well, this that I am, and maybe therapeutic paths. I was interested in like the kind of Jungian analytical psychology, and also the kind of spiritual world. So I got into Gnosticism, Gurdjieff, Ouspensky. I did the movements, all those amazing movements. Meditation. Oh God, this is a big list that could come out here. Just exploring all sorts of things and having insights and moments of realization and moments when it felt like, the flavor of what I'm looking for. It's something's kind of piercing through here. But still, I have to say, I always ended up feeling, ultimately, no, this still isn't it. This isn't what I'm looking for. So I kind of I'm quite an intense person. So when I get my teeth into something, I really do it, 100%.
Yeah.
So in all these different kind of avenues, including the spiritual, I would really go for it. And so, it came a point where I came to a point where, look, I've really tried my hardest here in the world, and now in this kind of spiritual world, and still I haven't managed to make it work. Basically, I completely failed to find whatever it is I'm looking for. And that sounds kind of dramatic, but it's actually, in my experience, and when I talk to people, it's actually, there was someone here today come to that place. I think it's a really wonderful, exciting place to be, because it's like a place of giving up me trying to do my life, and it's offering a kind of wonderful sort of handover from this personal sense of being the author of my life to just almost like dissolving into life, and realizing that life is being what it's being, and you're somehow part of that unfolding. So now that doesn't just happen like that. I mean, there can be incredible amount of fear involved in that process, because you feel like you're losing everything, and there can be a grasping to try and hold on to what you know, what's familiar, even though you know what's familiar doesn't work for you anymore. So that for me was important, because as long as I felt like I could still do it, then I would always come back to the old way, if you like. But having seen so fundamentally that I couldn't do it, it meant that there wasn't that option anymore. So there was just that falling into life. So that's really the sort of overview of what the messages that I'm bringing to people that come to the meetings and the groups is to explore how we think life is, to really look into precisely maybe questions we've never even asked ourselves before.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do a bit of that in a moment, but to really ask ourselves, well, how do I believe my life to be? And then question those assumptions and see them fall apart right in front of our eyes, and radically redefining what it is that we fundamentally are. And
Can you give an example of such an assumption?
Yeah, so something that we've been doing today, for example, like if we begin by just letting go of, and it's easy to say this, but everything we think we know about what we are and what life is, just let it all, put it all to one side just for the moment. We don't have to get rid of it, we just for this moment. And what do we notice? So just right now there's some church bells ringing in the background. I don't know if people can hear them now, but maybe you can hear something else in your sort of local vicinity. So there's a sound happening, and whatever it is that I am is aware of that sound. It's aware of that sound arising now. And that sound is constantly changing. It's coming and going, changing in intensity and in its kind of nuance. But this knowing sense is unchanging, it's open. It's aware of that sound. So, we could say, well, I'm not that sound, I'm this awareness that's aware of that sound. Because I'm not changing, but that sound is changing. That seemed pretty straightforward, and most people would go along with that. But then we bring it a bit closer to home, and it's like, well, hold on a second. There are thoughts happening too. Thoughts maybe following this conversation or having a view on this conversation that may be confused or whatever. But those thoughts are coming and going just like this sound. And what I am is this knowing that's aware of that coming and going. And feelings too. Feelings of joy or anticipation or fear or sadness. Again, they don't stay the same. You don't feel the same way now as you were feeling an hour ago or 2 hours ago. They're coming and going. Whereas what's knowing those feelings doesn't come and go. And sensations, we could do the same thing with sensations, like a headache or a cramp in your foot or something. It all comes and goes, whereas the knowing of it doesn't. So, interestingly, we commonly take thoughts, feelings and sensations and wrap them together like in a bundle, a package, and we say, that's me. That's what I am. I'm not the sound of the church bells, I'm not the crackling of the fire, I'm this little combination of thoughts, feelings and sensations. But as we've just seen, this combination, this sort of conglomeration is coming and going too, just like the sounds of the church bells. And what isn't coming and going is this pure knowing. We could call it pure knowing. I like that because it's not a noun, it's like a pure knowing. You can't sort of point to it and grab it and say there's pure knowing. It's a movement almost. Or some people call it awareness or whatever word you like to use. And it doesn't come and go. So what are you? What are we going to place our identity in? This kind of group of sensations and thoughts and feelings that's continually falling apart and reconstructing. Or this sort of pure knowing which is always here. So for me, that was like a revelation. Wow, there's something here. I say something, but not to be too pedantic about language, but it's not really a thing. It's no thing. It's a no thingness. But it's certainly here. Test it right now. I mean, are you knowing? Or conversely, are you not knowing? I mean, can you say that? Can anyone say there's nothing happening right now? Even to know that the question, is there anything happening right now? There is something happening. There's a knowing of that, and that never leaves. And I often then take it a step further. Well, where is that? I mean, where is this knowing? And almost unanimously, we plump for the head, because that's where it seems like our vision originates. It sort of takes us back to here, perspective-wise. But we can try that. We can check this area behind the eyes, inside the skull, just there at the front. What do we find when we explore that area? We find maybe pulsing, tingling sensations. Sometimes people talk about a kind of sphere, a kind of tight sphere of sensation there behind the eyes. And we go into that, we can go deeply into that and explore that, the kind of raw, visceral sense of it. And then, well, what's knowing that? That can't be where knowing is. Knowing is what's able to report that experience. So we get to this very quickly, we get to this very curious realization that what I am, this pure knowing, is certainly here. It's undeniable. But it's nowhere to be found. We can't say it's here, we can't say it's in the heart, we can't say any sort of cubic centimetre of my body is another experience being experienced. So often this can be a sort of monumental realization when you've always considered that you are sort of located inside a body. I mean, most people would say, yeah, okay, I'm the body, but you wouldn't say, you're not so fixed or attached to your toes, say. If your toes were lost, tragically, you'd still be here. You wouldn't say, my essence is in my toes.
Right.
But most people would say that it's somewhere up here. That in here is where I am, sort of riding around inside the skull. So this that we've just sort of explored there is a really direct way of uprooting that belief and seeing that all those thoughts, all those feelings and sensations and the tingling and pulsing and everything that you're experiencing that you could call a head even is being known. It's like an experience happening to this pure knowing that we are. So that seems to, rather than being this subject here, this body and these thoughts and these feelings, now they take on the kind of status of object, actually. And maybe thoughts, we could say, are like subtle objects, but they are like something is aware of those things, so they're like objects rather than subjects, and this pure knowing is like the ultimate subject.
So are you saying, to sort of give it perhaps a bit of a practical application, are you saying that that the knowing is our true self, if you like, I won't say higher self because that has other connotations, but that it's our true self, our true essence, and that objective reality, including presumably thoughts, emotions and so on, are perceptions of the human experience that are actually still part of the knowing, still part of consciousness, if you like, but are not who we really are. Is that what you're saying? I mean, is that these are things that we can perhaps take less seriously, for example, or we don't, let's say, maybe get hung up on thoughts because as you say, the thought comes and goes. So why give it more energy if it's if it has a short shelf life? Is that what you're saying?
I would just jump in on that, because I would say that to say that's not who you are, we start to kind of create this kind of division again.
Okay.
So I would say it is what you are, but it's not exclusively what you are. And the common belief is I am exclusively thoughts, feelings and sensations bundled up inside this suit of skin, and you're separate from me. And the direct consequence of that belief is I'm isolated, I'm alienated, because I'm a unit, and you're another separate unit. So there's a potential for threat there. There's a potential for some kind of, possible danger. So then that belief seems to kind of give rise to a whole collection of self-images, of ideas about what I am, in order to present to the world to protect myself from this vulnerability. And off we go, trying to draw towards us things that support our idea of what we are, push away what threatens it, desperately grab hold of what we think we need for some sort of security, So this whole kind of suffering, if you like, of the human condition is born out of that belief. Whereas if you see through that, if you see that, yes, I am this character James too, but that's not exclusively what I am. I don't need to play that game anymore. There can be a much more openness. I don't need to protect myself from a separate you. Actually, I start to recognize that you are also what I am.
Yeah.
I mean, we've missed out a massive step here, which is
go for it.
I mean,
let's have the massive step.
Yeah. So this recognition of the pure knowing, it's like a really useful sidestep to get out of this fixation that we are exclusively this separate self. But we were talking about this a lot today, it can lead to a sense of isolation in a different way, because although we don't believe we're this exclusive self anymore, we're this open, pure knowing, even so, it still feels like you, chair, carpet, ceiling, is separate from me. And it's a really curious paradox, because this knowing that I am, in not being able to point to it or find it, I can't say where it begins or ends. And yet I'm still saying that you're separate from me. So it's just like, this doesn't work, you know? So we have to look again, and I like to talk about this. We've looked at the subject, me. But there's another kind of side to that, which is the object. So now we look at the object, and this can be very, very challenging, because we were doing it today with sound, and I think sound is the easiest way into this. And what we're doing is, if anyone wants to do this while they're watching, if you just close your eyes and you just go with any sound that's kind of persistent now in your environment. I mean, if you can't find anything, maybe go with my voice. So the idea is that sound is outside of me, and I'm receiving sound waves from this external source that I'm picking up with my ears, which I'm then converting into electrical impulses that go to the auditory parts of my brain where the experience is recreated. So what I want to encourage you now is to go, just like we did before, with your first-hand experience, so like childlike. So without any assumptions. So if we just go with the sound now without any assumptions, then if you notice that the sound itself doesn't announce its source, the sound itself, without being interpreted, this sound now, it doesn't say this is James's voice speaking now from out there. It's a sound. It's pure sound. If we had some kind of non-verbal sound, it would be easier, but nothing's arising at the moment. But if you can just try and get a hold of this pure sound, here now, it's arising. It's like the manifesting of sound right now. Here it is. And again. Now I can jump on that again with concepts, and I can say, oh no, that's James's voice out there coming to me through the computer screen or whatever, you know. But this is why it's challenging. If you just suspend that overlay of conceptualizing just for a moment, then the actual experience is the sound is arising. It's a manifesting of sound. And actually the same is true of thoughts, flavors, tastes, images even. Even images is much more challenging. But then we take this knowing and we take this manifesting of sound and we just ask ourselves simply, can we possibly measure a distance between those two? However far away the sound may appear to be, can you really measure a distance between this knowing that you can't find? Remember, we can't find knowing. Where do you begin your tape measure? Here? No, because this is not knowing. This is an experience arising in knowing. So we discover there's nowhere to start the measurement and there's nowhere to end the measurement. Where does the manifesting of sound begin? So what that's inviting all of us to see in our common, everyday, ordinary experience, not some kind of big way out spiritual blowout that we all kind of go looking for 20, 30 years. Simple now. You might, oh my God. No, this pure knowing that I am is inseparable from the arising of sound. It's being it. There's no division there. The two are the same. But the sound comes and goes, but the knowing doesn't. So the knowing is like the original, if you like. I like the idea of musician, the guitar string, you know, like playing guitar. The knowing is like the string, and the string vibrates. It's still the string. It's just vibrating, and the vibration is the colour. That's the sound appearing and disappearing, and the string is still there. And so this is the absolute wonder of this, because you start to see that every single aspect of your experience right now is like the colourful dance. It's like a beautiful sort of collage of this knowing. Always, forever, always has been, always will be. It can't be anything other. What else would it be? You see, the passion is starting to come out now. It's so miraculous.
Yeah. Mm.
And it just takes, I just couldn't stress that enough. The most ordinary moment is all you need. So all this seeking, all this longing, and, you know, how can that possibly survive the realization that what you are is everything?
Mm.
This now, this message, this image on a screen, the computer that's offering the image, the sounds, the taste, the flavors, the environment in which all of that is also happening. It's purely miraculous.
So is part of your message then, James, that we are, as I think some quote-unquote spiritual teachers might say, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, and that effectively we've lost, in a sense, the royal we've lost that awareness because it's, our conditioned mind and so on, and all the things that come up that we believe to reality actually give us a different story,
Mm-hmm.
that tell us that we're not omnipresent, omnipotent, mm-hmm. and omniscient.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the knowing that you're talking about?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. It's a good way of describing it.
So, as a good example, sorry to, you're going to say something to interrupt that. A very simple example, if you're setting a goal to achieve something, for example, then isn't that denying omnipresence?
No, because...
Or omnipotence?
Yeah, well, there's two things. I'll go back to what you were saying previously first. It's an attractive story, what you just said.
Okay.
The fall of man and all this kind of...
Yeah.
And I find myself, the more I do this, trying to move away from actually presenting it in any kind of way, in that sense, like other popular stories are, it's a kind of journey of this presence, this knowing, whatever you call it, to rediscover itself again, it's like lost itself and rediscovering itself, or it's an evolution of consciousness. There's so many ways of packaging it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's all thought. Again, that's more mind trying to understand it, giving it a context, trying to feel safe again. Now we understand. This is what's going on, really. And it's the same deal. So I prefer to just celebrate it in a sense that this is what's happening. It's like a kind of interdependent web of experiencing. That nothing stands alone. If I take anything like, I don't know, what have we got down here? We've got a sort of, this is the head of a microphone stand, right? So, we could say there's a head of a microphone stand, and imagine it exists like in its own sort of external independent reality, and there it's a single thing right there. Mm-hmm. But have you ever experienced that? Could you experience that as a sort of independent thing, independent of everything else? Of course you can't. It's in my fingers right now. Here it is. It's conjoined to my fingers, holding it in space. There's a kind of blurry background there now that's combined with it. You can't have it like in those Google pictures, where it's just like white and this thing there, Even in the Google picture, there's a screen surrounding it and a keyboard and a background. And so we have this conceptual way of isolating things. Yeah, and we think that that's true. It's like a representational sort of way of looking at things. And words, if I say tree, it's representational of a tree. But then, if we really explore that, it's a nonsense. There's no such thing as a separate tree. There's no such thing as a separate microphone holder. It's always couched within a complete interdependent system. And that's arising. That's arising in this pure knowing that we are. So I would prefer to encourage people to bravely fall into the not knowing of. I mean that in a different sense to knowing. Knowing is like non-conceptual.
Okay.
So I'm not talking about 2 + 2 = 4 knowing when I say pure knowing. When I say not knowing, I am talking about conceptual knowing. So it's like I don't have to understand it.
Right.
I don't have to have a kind of evolution story. I don't have to have a mythical, like a cosmology that gives reasons for everything. We don't need that. That's trying to nail everything down again. That's the old way. This is totally free. It's completely open. So I would always, be wary about neatly tying it all up with some kind of concept about what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, isn't the real problem, though, conceptualization itself and the fact that we are taught, I mean, we're speaking in language, right, which you could say doesn't actually lend itself very well to your message, because it's like, what is knowing beyond knowing, It's only when we get into the content that then it becomes, we then get into this area of is it separate, is it not separate, what is it really?
Yeah.
Plus we live in a subjective, objective world, I go there, this sort of thing taught at school. Yeah. So isn't this just part of the human experience anyway, that is in a sense part of human evolution, that we're actually on the road, if you like, maybe collectively or individually to your message, but we actually have to go through this process of working through the duality, if you like, if I can call it that, to get to the non-duality.
Yeah.
Is that how you see it?
You could see it that way.
How do you see it?
You could see it that way. It's just, I'm always wary of these kind of tidy descriptions.
Tidy description, yeah.
But the way I would see that is that conceptualizing isn't the problem.
Okay.
So conceptualizing, in a sense, is another part of the dance. It's another rich possibility within the play.
Mm-hmm.
It's believing that conceptualizing is the reality. Now that's the difference.
Oh, okay.
So, we can exchange these words and have a sense of what we're actually meaning by these words. Of course, every word we say will be interpreted differently. Everyone will interpret it in a different way, according to the associations that they've bundled into that word over the course of their experience.
Right.
So, words will always be, attempts at best. But the point is that conceptualizing isn't the problem. There's nothing wrong with conceptualizing. In fact, it's very beautiful. And, in the course of history, we see fantastic products of that conceptualizing, particularly, in science and technology, in thought, in literature, in philosophy, art, all the things that we revere. In a sense, in order to be able to be created, there is conceptualizing involved. What I'm talking about is seeing beyond that conceptualizing.
Yes.
Seeing that it's actually empty of real meaning. It's a vessel. It's a tool. It's a tool in a toolkit. Like thought is a tool in a toolkit. So it's when those tools kind of take over. Like thought thinks it knows what life is, what we are. That's when we get ourselves into this sort of predicament where we start to feel, hold on a second, something's been missing. Something's missing here. Because in essence, what we're doing is we're starting to live inside this mind frame that we've created. We've invented it. Extraordinary. We invented it, thought. And then it's like this mind frame, and then we're this separate self. It's stuck inside it. No wonder we start to feel like something's missing. So what I'm talking about is it's not getting rid of this framework, not saying this is meaningless, get rid of it, let's all be like mushy infants again, I'm saying there's nothing wrong with this. It's this belief And what we're doing is looking right inside that belief and seeing that it doesn't hold up. And then look, when that dissolves, this can still be there. But what we are is beyond it. Is it and beyond. So we can dance with this. Look, we can play like we're playing now, like we've been playing all day.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, we might not understand each other on this, and then we tussle with it a bit, and then maybe we get more understanding, and then we go over here. And then we drop the whole thing, and we're just here together.
Yeah. But going back to what this means for the man in the street, let's call it.
Okay.
You know, what does this mean for the man in the street?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely know what you're saying. Yeah, let's bring it
how
right
is
back.
it gonna how is it gonna make his life
Yeah.
better, you know? Or
Yeah.
how is it gonna stop him seeking or find that thing that you say is missing?
Yeah. Okay, what I would say to that is when we believe that we are exclusively this separate self, then, like we were touching on earlier, there is this sense of alienation, of isolation. And so to compensate for that, we spend a lifetime constructing ways of appearing, ways of operating in life in order to be accepted, in order to be successful, or, you know, to be seen to be successful. So in essence, our whole life is motivated by reactivity. Yeah, not wanting to be found out, not wanting to be seen as, you know, whatever fantasy we have about what we really are. Most of us, it would be, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm
not good enough.
Not good enough, I'm untalented, I'm hopeless. You know, that's the story we run, because, well, you know, we can go into that as another interview. But I mean, you know, most of us, you know, we're very vulnerable infants, and then it's, you know, at some point in our life something happens, you know, it's just inevitable, and this kind of fledgling sense of self that's just forming, you know, it somehow feels like it's been judged, or, you know, a teacher tells you you're stupid, or some offhand remark that someone may not even remember they made suddenly is like a dagger in the heart. You know, and it's like, I never want to feel that way again. So we construct ways of being in order to protect ourselves. You know, I know people who that's, you know, I'm stupid. That's their belief. And they've basically they become university professors. You know, their whole life has become built out of that upset child. You know, so this is what happens for many of us if we're running on that reactivity. So now, what I'm suggesting is that if you start to recognize your true nature, like you said, true nature, I'm happy with true nature, that's great, that this pure knowing, it's non-conceptual. What we truly are has nothing to hide and nothing to uphold, nothing to present, nothing to escape. It's completely free. So when we have that as our kind of core self, if you like, it's another word, it doesn't really make sense, but who cares? I'm not so caught up in the semantics anymore. I don't really care about that anymore. But when that's where you're coming from, then this incredible sort of miracle happens. And there were people talking about this today, and it really always breaks my heart to hear it, because it's this message in action, you know. And what happens is that you start to see these old patterns of reactivity, and very naturally you start thinking, well, hold on, I'm not going to go that way anymore. Actually, no, that doesn't bring me joy anymore. That's old news. And so some kind of new direction starts to offer itself, that resonates with our joy, with passion, if you like, you know, something that fires us up, that we may never have approached before out of fear. Fear because this vulnerable little me is going to get exposed. So now, what if it gets exposed? That's not what you are, ultimately. That's fine. You can feel that tremor of fear. You can feel whatever comes up, and then it goes, and then you carry on following your new passion, your new path. And so life is then coming alive. You as a character, your uniqueness, your individuality is able to shine. That authenticity, it can really shine without this sort of reactivity. We could call it true activity, authentic activity, if you like, rather than reactivity, which is what most of us run our lives on. So that's how it would affect the man in the street.
Okay.
That's certainly been true in my life. That's what buzzes me up about it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So James, tell me about your meetings and retreats. What do you aim to give to participants? Is there an aim? Why do people come to you? Would you say?
That's a good question. Maybe we should.
Well,
ask,
obviously,
maybe we should ask one of them.
we should ask one of them, maybe.
Yeah.
But what is your sense of what you're giving?
Well, yeah, I know from my own sort of seeking, because I was a rampant seeker. We spoke earlier about. I was saying I've got quite an intense sort of mind way of being, and when I was seeking, I would read everything I could find. I would go and see all sorts of different teachers, and along the way, I found it was really wonderful to be with people who had realised what we're talking about here and were established in that, and could provide that kind of, I don't know, what could you say, that sort of stability in that. While we as seekers are kind of spinning around with all these ideas and like cul-de-sacs and dead ends, and to have someone who's been through all that themselves and sort of come out the other side, if you like, to be there as a sort of guide, if you like. Yeah, I would say like a guide, like a friend. That's the way I see it with me. That's why I like to. Like I do the meetings like this, we have a chair and people come up and share and we investigate together, and they sort of can look out onto the group and they get a sense of the equality there. So it's not like, I'm some special person that has something that you don't have.
Right.
That's absurd. It's completely opposite of that. I'm actually saying I'm just like you. I'm a normal person. And this is something that's not exclusive to rare individuals. This is something that's, available. Like every single person watching this right now, this is what you are. It's not something that needs to be cultivated. It's the opposite. It's something that's recognized when the kind of obscuring superimposition of ideas is allowed to just fall away. And like I said, we don't need to get rid of it. That can come back. But initially, if it falls away and we see beyond, then we start to get that flavour of what we are beyond what we imagine ourselves to be. So I would say that's what the meetings and retreats offer.
Yeah.
Is a chance to delve into, to explore these kind of questions, maybe in ways that we've never explored before, and to be with like-minded people where there's a natural kind of affinity. Yeah. And somehow that seems to help just to kind of ease into being in this kind of exploration, which can be very terrifying for some people, because you're really seeing life in a new way, and that can be disorientating. It can sometimes you can feel like you're losing your mind or you're dying. Yeah. And in a way, it is a kind of death, because you're letting go of all the usual definitions and ways in which you've clung to life. But the miracle is that you see that nothing actually dies, other than the belief that there was something to lose. Yeah. So I would say that's what the meetings offer, and the retreats is like, it's like taking that an extra level. So on a retreat, you'll have a chance to delve even more deeply and consolidate what you discover each day, because it can be difficult when we sort of go back into the world, although we don't really go back into the world. It's like it's a new cocktail of arisings in what we are.
Yeah.
But the most common complaint you have is that I leave the meeting room and suddenly, this wonderful realization is all gone. It's like, where's it gone? It's like mysteriously vanished.
Right, yeah.
And actually it hasn't gone anywhere. It's just that, the kind of habitual definitions and conceptualizing just seems to kind of cover it over again. It's still there. It doesn't go anywhere. But on a retreat, it's like we have a chance to fall ever more deeply into that, because we don't go back into our everyday life. We continue going deeper in.
Yeah.
And many people find that after a particular week, we do a week in Spain, something does start to remain. There's a sense that starts to become more established.
Yeah, I was just going to say that my experience from watching and experiencing the one-to-one sessions that James did this afternoon, my sense was, James, that the content didn't really matter that much. That that people they needed to express some emotion, whether it was blocked, whether it was suppressed, or whether, you could put whatever label on it, and I'm not going to put a label on it. I've just done it, but anyway. But you see, it was like your presence, and I think this is what some people say about healers. With healers, that their presence is enough, to actually enable people to feel safe and secure, to allow those emotions and mental blockages, whatever they are, to be actually released and transmuted, transformed. So, putting that into a question, do you see that as part of the, if you like, the effect, that this enables people in a safe environment to unblock these emotional and mental and other, if you like, barriers that may be, taking them out of their true selves, or not allowing them to express their true selves, maybe.
No, I think that's beautifully said, Glenn, because what I've noticed over the years is, like, some people, particularly people who are kind of quite analytical, they come to this and they lap up the kind of descriptions, and they read all the books, and they have a very comprehensive intellectual understanding, but when it comes to the kind of experiential side, it's still not clear, and so there's that frustration. So in a sense, you're right. In a sense, the words are like an excuse for us to be together. And what I find, what I love, actually, we're talking about following your passion. What my passion really is exactly what you're describing. Is when, that's why I use the chair, and people come up, and it seems to intensify the experience. It turns the volume up, if you think of an amplifier, it's like ramps the volume up on whatever they're struggling with, and it gives them the opportunity to really face it. So my role then, in a sense, is to hold them. I'm holding them right there, and I'm beaming at them. What you are is infinite being.
Yes.
And you can do this, and I'm holding them in that space, that spaceless space. There's no edges to it.
And they're in the space where that suddenly resonates, doesn't
Exactly.
it? It's a resonating. You're taking people deeper. I noticed with one person that they almost said nothing, but the effect, to me, seemed to be actually quite profound.
Yeah,
Would you comment on that?
Yeah, because there are felt sensations and tensions and fears that normally prevent us, particularly like from coming up and being seen. Because when you come into that chair, you're being seen. And people courageously put themselves there, and then they face that. They face those fears. That, there can be tremors in the body. I've had people like shaking, and you're encouraging them, really, like, it's okay. Go with it. Run with it. Let it happen. Go for it, And you feel that energy expressing, and there's this revelation. It's okay. This, whatever it is that I've been holding on to, suppressing, burying for my lifetime, suddenly it doesn't want to be, it wants to come out and it wants to express, however it will express, whether it's with a kind of shriek or a kind of, physical jerking, or whether it's talking, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's able to express, and it's being held, and it's being welcomed. And that's the revelation that people experience. It's okay. Whoa. And then what else can come? What else can come? And the more we get a taste for that, as we were talking about today, it can feel courageous to come up, but the more you do that, the more you start to live in that not knowing space, the more you start to get a taste for it, the more you start to, that becomes your way of being, and I find myself as like constantly throwing myself into situations where I have no idea what's going to happen, but somehow there's this deep knowing that everything is okay. So if that's where you're coming from, great. Let's explore. Let's play. Let's see where it goes. And if it's an incredible catastrophe, it's an incredible catastrophe. And then we pick ourselves up and we do the next thing. Yeah. And this is what I mean about action. It's like theme of today was license to live. License to live.
Yes.
Not to hide and to escape and to be the smallest version of myself. To be in the stands, looking at life on the pitch. We're coming right into the play, into the game. We're right there, embracing it.
So what do I need to get a license to live? What do I need to get my certificate? Do I need to go deep inside of me and excavate all the old stuff and all the, as some spiritual teachers would say, and clear out the, put the inner house in order first, so that the external house suddenly becomes wonderful. Right. Is that it?
I'll put it the other way around, because it's a sort of Christian thing. Like you have to work through all your sort of negative aspects in order to be able to reach the moment when you can recognize what you are, and be as you are. And I think the wonder of this message is the completely reverse. Okay. You can recognize what you are now. Right now. Okay, yeah. Just like we were doing earlier. Yeah. If you drop everything, if you drop all your ideas about everything, who you are, your name, your history, your qualities, just right now, here with me now. And maybe a little fear might come, or that's allowed too. And when we're just here together, you may start to just get a sense of something more, something beyond the personal sense, and we can drop into it more and more deeply. And you can really get a taste for what you are instantly. It doesn't require any time, it doesn't require any special knowledge, any special unpicking. You can be as you are instantaneously. You might sort of feel waves of it, like sort of something opens up and it closes down because it's unfamiliar. And it's just becoming more and more familiar with that, dropping into it ever more deeply.
Feels a bit like an hypnosis.
Yeah,
technique,
but there's no hypnosis going on. You're just dropping into what you are. Yeah. And what I would say then is, what I've noticed is, then you start to see more clearly how you manipulate life. How...
And who is the you, that is manipulating life?
So now I'm speaking more...
That's not the knowing.
No, I'm speaking more conventionally.
This is like...
if people are kind of very non-dual and they're watching this, they'll pick up on things just like you did and go, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's jumping between positions, it's so confusing. But I think that's part of the freedom of this message, because some people are going to come at this and they believe they are a separate self. So if you believe you're a separate self, let's be honest, that's what you believe to be true. So what we're doing, or what I'm saying is that you is that separate self. You're manipulating your life because you don't want to feel this way. You don't want to be to experience this discomfort or this dis-ease. You don't want to face this person because of the way they make you feel. You don't want to, go for this job or try and follow this particular passion because of the discomfort that it causes you, that separate self. So, in a sense, what I'm inviting you as a separate self to do is, well, what if we actually feel that dis-ease as it comes? What if we experience it in the moment? And interestingly, when the attention goes into the raw, visceral energy of the experience, it tends to come out of the sort of heady conceptualizing. And so this framework of conceptualizing we're talking about naturally starts to drop, and this expansive sense of self, capital S if you like, starts to become clearer, which is actually why a lot of people find their way into this through sort of great personal tragedy or great loss in their life, because this kind of tower of concepts is smashed to pieces because of the situations in their life. And what's left is this raw, open knowing. And it can be the beginning of a whole new exploration in life.
Is what you're doing, in a sense, because ultimately we're talking about oneness or wholeness, is that right? But what you're doing, in a sense, my take, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you're, if you like, easing the passage for people who are, continuing their lives based on, what they believe they know, what they believe to be true, and so on, and saying that's fine, accept all that as it is. If you believe you're a separate individual, that's fine. Don't change that in effect. But, know that there is a bigger picture, and is that it? So it's not too much of it's not too big of a quantum leap for people to make, to say, well, actually, we are all one. You are me, I am you, and there's no separation, which is ultimately, isn't it, what the quantum physicists tell us, that there is no separation anyway. Even science is telling us that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're saying, don't drop the belief that you're a separate individual, and that you hang on to your ideas, correct me if I'm wrong, because that's part of who you are, part of your makeup, and therefore part of your, if you like, allowance of what is.
Tinker with that a little bit. I would say you do drop the belief that you're a separate individual.
Okay.
Exclusively.
Exclusively.
Yeah, that's the difference. So, the thing about this kind of message, people who maybe have been exploring this kind of thing themselves, is it can get a bit kind of polarized. So, what we do is we throw everything away. We throw the baby out with the bathwater. We say, right, I am infinite, boundless awareness. So this is all a meaningless arising. This is just an appearance. Just an appearance. It means nothing.
Yeah.
So,
And that's too hard for people to swallow, right?
Well, yeah. It is quite a big. It's a big leap, but I have to say a lot of us find ourselves down that path along the way, and there was someone today struggling with that, because it's a very real experience when you touch in with this pure knowing, this awareness. You start to see that it is challenging. What it's essentially saying is there is no independent external reality. That's really challenging. You can't get more challenging than that. Right. It's saying that everything you're experiencing is kind of, it's an appearance made of mind. It's mental. That is massively challenging. So, I think what I'm trying to say is that when we come down from this kind of lofty spiritual, disappearing into awareness, we start to see that this dance of life, it's not just an appearance, it's an appearance. Wow, it's happening. It's something appearing out of this knowing. It's a display. It's like a kaleidoscope of happening. And there's a you and a me, and there's an interaction, and there's a whole plethora of possibility here. This is the play, this is the game, this is where the passion lies. And to neglect that and to just dump it in the bin as just an arising, that's it's like cutting off your arm. It is you. It's just as much you. So I think part of my passion in talking about this is to yes, it seems inevitable for many of us that we end up in that kind of, way out spiritual zone, but it's then coming right back into life and seeing that is expressing as this colourful dance. And then, we can fall in love with the character that we are. It's not believing we are a separate self again, but seeing that this character is part of that expression, as is this character, and this is unique, and this is unique, and we can celebrate that uniqueness. All our strangeness, our kookiness, our oddness, as well as our talents and what we have to offer. It's all kind of celebrated, just like, in this beautiful garden we have here. You can't see it here, but like a beautiful butterfly that now might be flying across. You could look at that butterfly, and it's got its own unique patterning in the wings, its own unique coloration. It's a unique specimen, and we can rejoice and celebrate that. We don't discard it and chuck it in a bin and say it's just an appearance. How crazy! This happens, You go to non-duality meetings, you see people in the back rows, and they'll be like empty shells.
Well, we could look at it this way, couldn't we? I mean, I see what you're saying about an appearance. And people like Bob Scheinfeld in America. I mean, he says it's very simple. Life is like a film show, right? So everything that we see happening around us is like the film up on the cinema screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the butterfly doesn't disappear; it's still there.
Exactly.
But it's in a sense a fiction. It's up on a screen.
Absolutely.
It's our projection of our five senses.
Yeah.
So from that, one thing we can say is, we don't have to take it seriously. It's not there hurting us. It's just a thing on the screen. There's a wonderful story, I'll just say this very quickly, wonderful story about when they started, they had outdoor cinema in India when it first introduced the cinema. And there was some guy arguing or fighting with someone on the screen, right? And there was a little old lady sitting in the front row with an umbrella, right? And she got up and she started bashing the screen, What a wonderful metaphor for, the perception of reality.
Yeah, fantastic.
So it's not it's not about losing the appearance, is it? No. It's about understanding that actually, yes, it's appearing, but none of this is real, isn't it?
I'm going to add something to your analogy there. I
Go
love
on,
it.
then.
But we are the screen.
Yes.
So we're not sitting in the audience.
We're everything.
Looking at this.
Well, what Bob says, he says that we are the light in the projector, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But we are also that we could. I mean, we are.
That's similar. Yeah. So I would say we're the screen. So the screen never moves. The screen is always the screen. And whether there's a projector projecting light or not, the screen is still there.
Yeah, the screen's still there.
It's always there, and we get captivated. We as a screen, it's like a self-aware screen, if you like.
Yes.
And we as a screen get captivated in the movie, and we forget that there is a screen. And then what we're doing, in a sense, is recognizing, oh, look, there's a screen. And the screen is being the movie. Every appearance, whether it's a distant moon or a nearby actress, is inseparable from the screen. It's made of the screen. If it was a television screen, it's made of the pixels of the screen, the pixels dancing. There's no real actress there. It's an array of a configuration of pixels that give that appearance, and then instantly. Now,
are you
else.
Also then an array of pixels in my brain?
Yeah. This is the thing about being the screen, because these hands and this pinkish thing called a nose is also on the screen.
Yeah.
You see, and that's where we get confused. Like we still think I'm a separate physical self with an awareness inside me, but then we're in this independent physical universe again. Whereas what we're seeing is it's all appearing. All of that is appearing now, and this is on the screen, and these thoughts are on the screen, and these movements and sensations is all on the screen.
Right.
So it's so challenging because I sometimes like to look at the scientific way. Well, first of all, common sense. Like most people. Oh, I had a dear conversation with a friend of mine. It's like so sweet, so innocent, and so honest. Believing it, it's like there's a sort of little me. There's me here. There's a little me that's in here that looks through these eyes. So the eyes are like windows. So it's literally a little me just looking through the eyes at the world that's out there.
Yeah.
And there it is, it's out there. And I was like, well, hold on, well, how is the little me seeing? Is there a little me inside the little me looking through the eyes of the little me that's looking through these eyes? We go on and on and on. And of course it makes no sense.
Yeah,
so
Russian dolls.
then we jump into the scientific description, which is that, like photons are going into the eye and the retina sort of converts into electrical impulses into the brain. So actually, this is even more miraculous. It means that this experience that you're experiencing right now is happening, it's being generated in your brain. So look at the dimensions of it. Right now, if I look out there, I can see a cloud that's probably 5 miles away. So this is happening in my brain. So the appearance of distance is an appearance. It has to be, because my brain isn't like 5 miles wide to account for that distance. So that distance must be an appearance. And we can talk about, if you burned your hand, you're not actually feeling the heat. The sensation is being sent by neurons to your brain, which actually creates the sensation of heat or pain, and then miraculously kind of amalgamates it into the experience sort of three-dimensionally to make it appear as if it's out there. These are the things that nobody ever questions. This is what science is saying. But we can go even further because out there it doesn't look like this. This is the human, this is still science by the way, this is the human subjective experience of out there. And if you were a frog or a bat, it would look completely different, because out there, according to science, is like a kind of soup of equations of physicists, basically. It doesn't look like anything.
Quantum soup.
Yeah, it's just equations, concepts invented by physicists that when they apparently, I was going to say when they aggravate sort of nerve endings in the skin, but the skin, what's that even? This is the human subjective experience of what a hand looks like. But outside of this kind of barrier of perception, it's just you can't even picture it. So I like to go a step further and say, well, if we've never experienced this apparent outside quantum whatever it is, qualia, then what if we trust our direct experience? What if this is it? What if this isn't a representation in your brain of an out there? What if this is the reality as it is, luminously shining right now, indivisible from the knowing, the pure knowing that we are? Wow, it's like, wow. Wow.
James, I love the passion that you're, exuding.
We can go on and
here.
on
We
and
can
on.
go on and on. But please tell me, I do want to ask you this, tell me about the joy of what you do. I see the faces light up in the meeting this afternoon. Tell me about, what's the joy for you then?
It's this coming home, you see. It's when people, for the first time maybe, suddenly have that sense that we're talking about. They recognize the real nature, the true nature is this pure knowing, awareness, whatever. When they come home to that, it's like this homecoming that we've longed for our whole life. I sometimes call it the ultimate marriage. It's like the wedding of our real self with every particle of life. It's like this sort of it's the ultimate kind of consummation. It's like coming back, everything coming together again, and it seems to release this incredible joy, happiness, love. Actually, love is another is what I would say love actually is. It's those seemingly separate things collapsing together again
Beautiful.
into that unity. And that inspires this kind of joy and happiness and just, it's just like, embracing.
James, thank you so much for
thank you.
joining me on sharing your passion. What a wonderful demonstration of passion, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. Still laughing. Look, how wonderful. Thank you very much for joining me, James. It's been a great pleasure.
Pleasure, Glenn.
I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thanks very much to everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. We're still laughing here. And we'll see you next time on another Sharing Your Passion. Thanks very much. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.